Welcome back, house guests. Come on in. I'll pour you some tea and let's chatter about the latest Blake Lively. So today we're going to play Connect the Dots. So, as you know, Blake Lively's been in the headlines for a variety of reasons. One, she didn't show up in Toronto with her husband, but she had to be in New York for her Flossy Pop talk, which reports state that she didn't do so well and she was kind of awkward, kind of like this podcast right now. But anyways, she wasn't seen with her husband. That caused some chatter. Her husband had made a joke. I guess if it was made with an adult, it would be different. But with a kid who's obviously nervous on camera, he asked the kid, "What's your question?" Obviously, he thought it was funny and he laughed, which made it even more cringeworthy, which brought up more of the social chatter. On top of the numerous memes on social media about Ryan Reynolds and his Sick Kids campaign that he rightfully advocates for. He's been doing this with sick kids for apparently 11 years in raising fundraising with his advertising company, Maximum Effort. So he's a big supporter of this hospital, and the hospital is called Sick Kids. But social media, because of all of the Blake Lively backlash, have not taken kindly to his new advertising campaign. Again, backlash Ryan Reynolds, backlash wife, backlash didn't say happy birthday. That is still brewing. Divorce rumors are still brewing this weekend. Taylor Swift rumors are still brewing for Blake Lively. And Blake Lively also had a very bad wardrobe choice, according to social media. She was in all brown with knee-high boots. It looked like they were the red sole ones, so you know those ones are really expensive. I personally liked her outfit. I didn't know what the weather in New York was. Apparently it was really, really hot. She was in a suit jacket. When she was on stage with someone who was in a very light, bright, airy blue ensemble, so it looked kind of heavier on Blake Lively, to give you my fashion opinion. But if it was winter, I would have loved that outfit. So let's get back to connecting the dots now that I've taken you on this ADD tour. So I've written this down for you guys. Hopefully you can follow along. So let's connect the dots. So let's say that because of the Rebel Wilson connection, now with Jed Wallace suddenly appearing and Rebel being mentioned in text messages stating that she wants a website, right? Their tag is talking about oligarchs in the story. Jed Wallace also mentions a few similar statements and a website. And suddenly, a few days later, there is a website, allegedly, in a defamatory manner, that on the request of Rebel Wilson against another party involved in her movie and her movie production. So here's the dots. So let's pretend that Lively was telling the truth and that this guy is so clandestine we'll never be able to trace him, which is probably true. If you send a voice message, if you send a signal chat, a Snapchat, all that disappears. So why not? If you want to cover your tracks. So let's connect these dots. So Jed was mentioned in the Rebel Wilson lawsuit against her for defamation. And Jed is also associated with Tag. Tag is also associated with Johnny Depp, right? Melissa Nathan and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is also associated to Amber Heard, who Amber Heard went against Camille Vasquez in the infamous Johnny Depp trial. Now, interesting enough, let's jump more dots. Brian Friedman was recently Rebel Wilson's attorney, but recently, Rebel Wilson changed attorneys, and Brian Friedman is no longer an attorney for Rebel Wilson. So isn't it interesting that if Camille Vasquez worked for Johnny Depp and Melissa Nathan on the PR of it, then Camille Vasquez has the insider's look or the backstory of how all of this legal PR works, right? So now she's going up against Rebel Wilson, and Rebel Wilson is being accused of defamation by apparently a few entities. And it is a deeper story and very intricate. And if you'd like, comment below and I'll look more into it. But if Jed really was hired to do the backstory and to do the smear campaign, in the text messages, he says, we don't have to do anything. So even if he planned on doing it, it was already taken off. And it was already taken off because, honestly, Blake had no chance to being popular in this movie. And the series of missteps that have occurred and the misjudgment or the poor judgment on Blake Lively is associating herself with backlash because she associated herself with Target during the height of the backlash. If you count the February 18th cutoff date as far as the ongoing smear campaign, as you know, Target implemented anti-DEI policies, and there was a huge backlash against Target. So much so there was a boycott. So how are you supposed to support a product if it's at a store that everybody is boycotting, right? So there's that. So the series of missteps was, well, the decision to change the character. We all know that. The actor, the clothing, everything. So she probably would have done better in a different movie and they wouldn't have been such a huge backlash. And she probably would have been so successful. If she just skipped to A Simple Favor 2, maybe this wouldn't be happening. And she would have gotten everything that she wanted easily. The producing credit, the writing credit, the whatever. Because the director, Paul Feig, I believe, who is also going to be directing Brendan Sklenar. Weird, right? I don't think so. I think there's a connection there. They seemed very chummy and supportive. And he even admitted that Blake Lively had a lot of input and that it was fabulous. So maybe if she skipped this movie and took over A Simple Favor 2, it would have worked in her favor. So basically her entire character, the fact that she launched at Target, who was already doing poor in sales, she took, well, I want to say advantage, but maybe it was a mutual advantage for both sides, a mutual opportunity. Target was looking for someone to invest in. They needed a big name, and they thought Blake Lively, being associated to Ryan Reynolds and being such a big movie star and having this beautiful, nice persona would help the brand. They were going to invest $100 million in their hair line to sell at Target. That was Target's goal. $100 million invested in hair care. But she ended up having to promote both at the same time because the hair care launch was happening right after or right around the premiere. So she absolutely had no choice but to advertise her hair care in conjunction with the movie. Otherwise, nobody would know that it was going on, or that it was coming up on market, or that it was available. So she had to split the baby, I think, in my opinion. And it was a very bad decision to do. And if she wants to have the end date in February at the very height of this backlash of DEI in Target, of course that's going to show poor sales. So not only did you, one, just step in it right in the beginning, you should have just skipped it and gone to a simple favor. Two, secondly, your hair care brand landed in the wrong supermarket or the wrong market, because those sales and the social chatter should have been examined, right? Three, the launch dates are close together. Four, you chose to utilize your Betty Booze and Betty Buzz mocktails and cocktails at the after party and naming the drinks after the characters and after the movie. It was in bad taste. And the fact that Blake Lively did not focus on DV, but instead, for her own brand and her own survivability of her brand, had to focus on other things, it wasn't going to be a successful launch or branding moment for Blake Lively. And as you know, Blake Lively is a brand that relies on popularity. And if you're not popular, no one is going to buy your stuff or support you. And right now she's experiencing that. And not only that, there's getting more fuel to the fire that now her followers look fake. So whatever investment or stake that she had as far as popularity was a lie. So was Brian Friedman right? Was Brian Friedman right when he mentioned investors? That they lied to investors? Because if you're not popular and you're selling stocks like Ryan Reynolds is on your popularity, and you say you have, I don't know, for example, Blake Lively had 49 or 48 and it suddenly jumped to 49 followers. But it turns out that they were all fake. Well, not fake, bot farms. Bot farms. And bot farms is where you can have multiple phones with multiple phone numbers. We'll have multiple IP addresses at your disposal due to the multiple phones. So 5 phones equals 5 IP addresses. But they would all come from the same location, which is why Blake Lively wanted everybody's location, because she wanted to make sure you weren't bots. And when she figured out they weren't bots, she had to retreat because she was wrong. Because the smear campaign didn't have to happen like she thought. And she stepped in it, and it's just pure quicksand for Blake Lively's career and possibly Ryan Reynolds. And it turns out, and it looks like, Blake Lively uncovered a PR conspiracy and secrets of Hollywood, and it is dirty and messy, and there is just going to be more fuel to the fire because now Blake Lively is attached to another controversy that is more intricate than Blake Lively's own case. Well, guys, that's my thoughts for today. Let me know what you think. Comment, share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, house guests.